All right, so we are going to do the NBA Western Conference 2025-2026 standings predictions. I would do the East and the West in one video, but I feel like it'd just be too long, so we're just going to do the West. In another video, we can do the East. So let's kick this off. All right, so I guess I kind of spoiled it with what video clips I'm showing here to kick us off, but I do think the Jazz are going to be the 15th seed this season. The Jazz are really a team that feels a bit stuck in limbo to me. I'm a bit confused with them. There's no doubt they have talent on the roster, but it doesn't really seem like talent that would make them contenders for a championship or even a play-in spot right now. They're a team full of both older role players and young rising players, but it remains to be seen whether any of those young players will become real stars in the league. Now, I personally am pretty high on some of these guys they've got in Utah. I really like Isaiah Collier. You want to see a bit more from him this year, but that's natural with any young player. You want to see them develop year by year, but I really liked what I saw from him last year. Keontae George I really like. Taylor Hendricks is going to be coming off an injury. We'll see how he does. I think that there's a lot of potential here in Utah, but right now they're not really a great team, and I don't think any Utah fan is going to be very bothered by hearing me say that. I am a bit confused by some of the older guys on this team. You've got a Kyle Anderson, a Yusuf Nurkic, Georges Niang, who I believe is injured right now. These are reliable guys, but you don't want them to be taking away touches or minutes from your young players when you're in a spot like Utah is, where you're not really worried about the playoffs. You're just kind of trying to get good picks and watch these young guys develop. So yeah, I do think that Utah is going to be the 15 seed in the West this year. But if I'm Utah, I'm totally fine with that. All I really want this year, if I'm a Jazz fan, is a high pick in the draft. And I want to see jumps from some of our young guys. I want to see more of Cody Williams, more out of Kyle Filipowski, more out of Keontae George, who I mentioned earlier, Taylor Hendricks, Isaiah Collier, and Ace Bailey, who they just drafted this year. You want to see all those guys look really good this year, and hopefully in a few years, you rev up to eventually, being contenders. For this team, my player to watch is Taylor Hendricks. I'm just really interested to see how he's going to bounce back after one of the most gruesome sports injuries I've ever seen. Hopefully he's able to get back to where he was and even improve from that. I got a lot of faith in this guy, and I really want to see him succeed this year. Moving on to 14th place, I have the Suns, and I have to just wonder what happened here. Now, I recognize that moving them down to 14th is quite a drop. It's a drop by 3 spots, but I just don't see a lot to like with this Suns team. Ever since they made the NBA Finals in 2021, they've been trending downhill. They added Kevin Durant. Later, they added Bradley Beal. That was supposed to push this team from being contenders to being champs. But all it ended up doing was obliterating their depth. You lost Mikal Bridges. You lost Cam Johnson. And now you've lost Kevin Durant and you've lost Bradley Beal, and you have nothing to show for it. Obviously, Devin Booker is an unreal talent, probably bare minimum a top 3 shooting guard in the association. And as long as he's on this team, he can definitely drag them to a few wins. Maybe he even can drag them to a play-in spot, although I do feel like that's unlikely. You've got Jalen Green now, who's still young and still has room to improve, but I'm not sure how much faith I personally have left in that happening. Every year is supposed to be the year he takes the leap, and then every year he really doesn't. This team also has Dylan Brooks. I like the Maluak pick in the first round this year. I think that's how you say his name. I do think he's a player with a good amount of potential, but otherwise, I'm not especially confident in this team this year or really moving forward in the future. For my player to watch on the Suns, I got Mark Williams. I'm just curious to see what he's going to do. I mean, the Hornets tried to trade him to the Lakers. Trade didn't go through because of injuries. They pulled off the trade to the Suns. I feel like Mark Williams is a good basketball player, but we got to see whether or not he can stay on the floor. So I'll be paying attention to that this year. All right, so in 13th place, I have the Sacramento Kings, and this is my largest predicted drop in the Western Conference. And I just want you to let me explain why. Now, truthfully, I could see the Kings ranging between 13th and 10th probably, maybe even ninth, although I think that's a bit too high for them this year. But the Kings are just a team that I'm very confused by because I don't really know what they're aiming for. I think they're trying to be a playoff team, but I just don't think they have that kind of personnel. De'Aaron Fox is gone now. They don't have a truly elite starting point guard. Malik Monk really isn't a point guard, or at least that's not where he excels. The same thing applies to Zach LaVine. Then you got DeMar DeRozan, who's still a good player, but he's not the player he once was. And then Sabonis is here, and he really is one of the most disrespected stars in the league, I would say. But I don't think that he's going to be dragging these guys to playoff contention. And with the Kings, it feels like they're one of those teams that's just going to keep trying to get far in the playoffs without realizing that they're not going to do that. Like, they're just going to be perennial play-in exits or first-round exits, and they're never going to go deep with this kind of roster. I think they need to consider pressing the restart button, which sucks if you're a Kings fan, because a few years ago with the Beam team, it seemed like everything was turning around, but now I don't know. I just don't see it for them right now. Maybe if they can make some moves, they can improve the team. But, that's what DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine were supposed to do, and that really didn't get the job done. My player to watch for the Kings is Keon Ellis. He's not like a crazy good player or anything. He's in the NBA, but comparative to NBA players. But I don't know. I just really like him. I think he's a really good basketball player. He'll probably get a little bit better this year. Who knows? Now moving on to 12th, I have the Pelicans. And the Pelicans are sort of a confusing franchise because it doesn't feel like anything with this team ever goes the way it's supposed to. Obviously, a lot of this is due to the fact that Zion never seems to be healthy, and now Ingram's gone, and you've essentially replaced him with Jordan Poole, although they obviously play different positions. I don't think the Pelicans roster is totally terrible. They've got plenty of players I'd consider to be pretty good. You've got Zion, Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray, who should be back this year, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Yves Missy seems like a promising center. I think this team has good pieces. It's just that I think in many cases that other teams have better pieces. This is a team that was really difficult to place, just considering how heavily injured they were last year. For all I know, they could be totally healthy this year and end up being a dominant playoff team. Or they could be heavily injured again and end up even worse than I'm predicting them to be. But for now, I think 12th place is a fairly decent prediction for where they'll end up. I could see them being a play-in team, to be fair. I just can't really take that, stance because this team is very unproven, right? Also, side note, what was the thought process with that draft trade? Now, for the Pelicans, my player to watch is going to be DeJounte Murray. This isn't one of those guys who is young and you're looking to see if he's going to take a leap. We know this is a good player. He's been an all-star before, but he was injured a lot of last year. He missed a lot of time. And this team has made some changes, adding new guys in, losing guys. So my thing is just, how much does he help this team when he's back? How does he look? Is he a major part of getting these guys potentially to the play-in or even the playoffs? That's why I got DeJounte as my player to watch. In my 11 seed, I have the Portland Trailblazers, a team that I've seen a lot of people be pretty high on. I've seen some people be pretty low on. I think 11th is right about where they place. Maybe a little bit higher, just barely seeing it into the play-in. Maybe a little bit lower. But I think 11th is about where they'll be. I do think they've improved compared to last year, but the West is so loaded that it's hard for a team to move up a whole lot, even if they have improved. I think, like I said, they're around that 11, 12, maybe 10 range. I'm a big fan of their young guys. Really like Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan, Scoot Henderson, although he is injured going into this year, and London, Ontario native Shaden Sharp. All these guys look incredibly promising to me, and I really like Yang Hansen as a prospect. I'm curious to see how he does in the NBA and how much playing time he gets in his rookie season. The Blazers are definitely a team I'm going to be keeping an eye on, trying to catch them in their games when my team isn't on, because I feel like they have a lot of potential to be a fun watch. Also, I really like Dame coming back to Portland, even though he's not supposed to play this year. I do think having him around to mentor the young guys is nice, and it's just nice to see Dame back in Portland, Having skilled vets around to mentor young guys is also a good thing. I mean, you got Drew Holiday as well. I just don't see these guys getting too much higher than 11th this season, unfortunately. And then my player to watch for this team, I do have Shaden Sharp. I was going to do Scoot Henderson, but he's going to be injured starting the year. Not sure what's going to happen there, so I decided to go with Shaden Sharp, who I do really like. I want to see from him, see some development. What is his future going to look like with this team? How good is he going to be? Can he be an all-star caliber player? You don't really need him to be an all-star this year, but seeing if he's potentially looking poised to take that step. Next up in 10th place, I do have the San Antonio Spurs, and I'm not sure if this is a hot take. I think I might have them lower than some people. A lot of people are expecting them to be a bit of a higher play-in seed. Some people think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't quite think that. I don't think it's impossible, but I don't think they're going to get in the playoffs this year. That being said, I do think they're most definitely going to be better than they were last year. I think they're definitely a low play-in seed, around 9-10. They could be 11th, but I think they're going to be around 9th or 10th in the West. This is a really solid team with the addition of De'Aaron Fox at the trade deadline last year. You give Wemby an elite point guard to roll with, not to mention reigning Rookie of the Year Stephon Castle, and obviously Wemby himself is truly an alien. Of course, things are dependent on health. How is Wemby going to look after coming back from his injury? I personally think he's going to be just as good, if not better, upon his return, but we've seen guys be hurt and come back worse. Hopefully that's not the case, but it is something that could potentially happen. With all of that being said, the future is incredibly bright in San Antonio, and if they don't make the playoffs this year, they're definitely still going to be threats in years to come. I really like how they drafted this year. Obviously, they got the second overall pick, Dylan Harper, but Carter Bryant was also a really nice pickup for them in the draft. I also really like the addition of Luke Cornett in the offseason. Not that he's particularly young, but he is a very solid player who I think will add to this team quite a bit. Building off of that, I do actually have Luke Cornett as my player to watch for the Spurs. Not a whole lot to add here. I just like him as a player. I think he's a good fit on this team. I think he helps them out quite a bit. And I don't really like picking rookies for players to watch, typically. Otherwise, I might have put Carter Bryant or something. But, I just decided to go with Luke Cornett because he's new to the team. Okay, so I have the Memphis Grizzlies in 9th. And for me, this is my big fish because this is my team. So you guys are going to have to excuse me if I go on for a little bit longer on these guys than I am going to with other teams. But this is a team that is a bit confusing to me. I've only dropped them one spot from last season, and I do think that there's plenty of people who are going to want them to be lower, and that's fine, but I think this is about where they belong. The Grizzlies front office finally did something this offseason when they traded Desmond Bane away for a truckload of first-round picks, KCP and Cole Anthony, which is nice and all, except we are not in a position as a team. I'm saying we now because just how I talk about the Grizzlies, right? There is a little bit of bias that goes into these conversations, but it is what it is. I try to take as much out of it as possible, but the Grizzlies are not in a position to be stocking up on picks. And the Grizzlies never do anything, ever. They do not make trades for big players. They do not sign big players. They just draft. And they do draft pretty well, but they don't necessarily draft well enough to be contenders. Now, picking up all the picks isn't a bad thing because they can potentially use them in a trade eventually. It remains to be seen whether they will do that or not, though they really do not make a lot of trades to add to the current roster. But that's just me ranting about my problems with the front office side. Let's talk about the actual team, though. The Grizzlies have not really evolved a lot since 2022. They kind of have the same problems they've had. They need a starting small forward. They need a starting center. Zach Edey's a talented player, but he was a rookie last year, and they expected him to solve that center problem, which just isn't realistic. Maybe this year he takes that step into being a good quality starting center. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying expecting him to do it as a rookie is unrealistic. It's the same thing with the wing spot. You've had Jalen Wells, who has been great, by the way, but you can't expect him as a rookie to be out there competing every single night, being your starting wing, guarding the other team's best player every single night. Now, I absolutely think Jalen Wells can be that guy for this team, but I don't think it was realistic to have him be that guy last season. Okay, I've pretty much just spent 2 minutes complaining about the Grizzlies' front office and trajectory, so let's talk about the actual team, because I do think that there is a lot to like here. Obviously, the main thing with this team is health. They are always injured, and that is a major reason why they haven't really been able to do anything over the last few years, is they've just been so hurt, right? Ja is always hurt. Jaren seems to be hurt all the time. Brandon Clark is always hurt. Somebody is always hurt on this team, and it prevents them from making any real noise. Now, you got Zach Edey hurt going into the year. Brandon Clark's hurt again. Jaren's hurt, although he might be back in time for the start of the regular season. This year, you need a few things from the Grizzlies if you expect them to be an actual good team, a contending team. First of all, Ja and Jaren need to be healthy the whole way through. Like, they can miss a few games, but they can't be playing like only 50 games in the season. They have to play. They have to be there, or this team is not going to do anything. You need jumps from guys like Zach Edey, Jalen Wells, G.G. Jackson. You need those guys to improve and, really cement themselves as NBA caliber players. You need Cedric Howard, who you drafted, who you traded up to draft to be good. And then, I really do like a lot of the additions this team made in the offseason. I like KCP. I think if you're not expecting a whole lot out of him, if you just want him to be, a solid defender who can hit a few threes, he's going to be able to do that for you. I really like the addition of Ty Jerome. So really, I know I complained a lot, but I am still somewhat optimistic about this team. That's just how I am with sports. Like, I'm always going to feel some optimism for a team. I'm just like that. But yeah, I do think 9th is about where they'll end up. I do think they could potentially be higher if everything goes right for them, but I'm not expecting everything to go right. I'm not expecting Ja and Jaren to play full seasons. I just don't think that that's a fair expectation considering what we've seen. I'm not expecting everybody to take big leaps, and I'm expecting the West to just overall be really good. So I think 9th is fair, but I could definitely see them being higher. Obviously, I am a Grizzlies fan, so I want them to do better, but this is, I think, a fair estimation of their placement. My player to watch is Jalen Wells because he is going to be expected to play a bigger role, I think, in the offense with the departure of Desmond Bane, and I do think he's capable of doing that. His defense, I think, is going to get better this year. I think he is definitely somebody to watch this season. In 8th place, I have the Golden State Warriors, and maybe I'm being a bit unfair to the Warriors here, but I do think 8th is an accurate prediction for where they'll end up. To be honest, I'm surprised this team even got the 7th seed last year, and then the fact they knocked the Rockets out of the playoffs was even more impressive. That being said, I don't see a whole lot to like on this roster. Obviously, any team with Steph Curry on it is a threat, and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green are both still very good players, but who else do they really have? Are they supposed to rely on Pods, Buddy Hield, and Moses Moody? No disrespect to those guys, but I don't know that those are key guys, at least not so high up in the lineup, on a team that wins a championship in 2026. Also, who's your real starting center? I know they have Al Horford. I like Quinn Post, but I don't know if either of those guys can be the main lead starting center on a championship team in 2026. Obviously, you got the whole Jonathan Kuminga thing, which has now worked out. He is signed. I don't know if they're going to trade him, if they're going to keep him around. He is on the team, though, and I do like Kuminga quite a bit. But my thing with the Warriors is just that I just feel like there are teams in the West that are just significantly stronger than them. It's not even that they're a terrible team. It's just that I feel compared to other teams, they don't quite measure up. But like I said earlier, any team with Steph Curry on it is a threat. As long as he's here, the Warriors are still dangerous. For my player to watch, I do have Quinton Post. I want to pick like a younger guy. I like him. I think he's a solid player, good shooter for a big man. I think he does help this team. Even though I said I don't know that he can be the starting center on a championship team, it doesn't mean that he's not a good player. I still think he's good. I like him. He's my player to watch for this team. In the 7 seed, I have the Dallas Mavericks, and I feel like I might be overrating them a little bit, but I do like this spot for them. This summer, Nico Harrison was rewarded for his incompetence and was handed a potentially generational prospect after selling his franchise player and grabbing the 10th seed. Truthfully, I'm still annoyed that Flag went to the Mavs instead of a team that really needed that star power, like maybe the Jazz, for example. And I'm even more annoyed that Flag ended up in the West on a team that's already a contender because, as I've established, the Grizzlies are my favorite team, but you know, it is what it is. The Mavs are already a good team, ridiculous Luka decision aside. Anthony Davis is dominant when he's available, and guys like Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Klay Thompson, all very good, not to mention other solid pieces like Najee Marshall and Max Christie. This is a good squad, and adding Flag makes them scary. There is, of course, one glaring hole in this lineup, which is the point guard spot. Kyrie's hurt, and from what I've seen, he's likely going to be out for a few months at least, and I do think that leaves a major hole in this roster in terms of production from that point guard spot. Do they fill it through a trade? Do they have a guy step up from the team? Whatever it is, I do think it's an issue, but I don't think it's enough to ruin their season. I think they'll be a solid 7 seed, get into the playoffs for the play-in, and with Kyrie back, they could be a threat, honestly. For my player to watch, I got Najee Marshall. Not a crazy elite talent or anything like that, but I just like him. Good, solid player. Keep an eye on him this year. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves in 6th place, and this really is not intended as Wolves disrespect. I have them as the same seed as they were last season at the end. I don't think the regular season really matters for teams like this. You know, all that really matters is getting into the playoffs. From there, if you win, you win. My real concern with Minnesota is the lack of a true point guard, like elite starting point guard. Mike Conley is a Grizzlies legend. I'm not trying to talk bad on him, but he just isn't that guy anymore, at least not as a starter. For me, the Timberwolves' main goal this year, like obviously aside from winning, is to get a point guard who is a good starter, whether that be through a trade, through some kind of signing, or somebody on the team breaking out. I really think they need that point guard. But even putting that aside, this is an elite team, and they are going to be dangerous come playoff time. Building off of what I just said, my player to watch is Rob Dillingham. I want to see if he is going to be able to rise up and take that lead point guard spot on this team. In 5th place, I have the Los Angeles Lakers, and this is a team that is very interesting to me because their trajectory is one that I feel like I can't really pinpoint in the coming years. They were gifted Luka by the Mavs, which really is going to help them in the future, but LeBron is likely going to retire after next year, and then what do you have? Austin Reeves is a good basketball player, but I don't think he's the third option on a championship team, and he's definitely not the second option. Jackson Hayes is outmatched against pretty much any star big in the West, and they seem to have recognized that and upgraded that position with DeAndre Ayton, which is an interesting add, but I'm not totally sure he's going to be able to fix that problem. After all that, though, what do the Lakers actually have? Am I really supposed to take a team with 2025 Marcus Smart seriously as a contender? The roster is full of players who, while decent, aren't guys I think are going to play active key roles in a championship team at this point in time. Rui Hachimura, Dalton Knecht, Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, and Jake LaRavia is here for some reason. I think the Lakers will be good in the regular season. Maybe they'll even win a round in the playoffs, but I don't see them as champions this year. My player to watch for the Lakers is DeAndre Ayton, mostly because I feel like this is a bit of a make-it-or-break-it year for him. We're going to see what he can do with a guy like Luka Doncic and even a guy like LeBron helping to set him up. And at the same time, I feel like he is huge for the Lakers because, like I said earlier, Jackson Hayes was not competing with star bigs in the West. Your hope, I guess, is that Ayton is going to be able to fill that role better. If Ayton sucks, I honestly think the Lakers are kind of cooked. If he ends up being really good, then they might do even better than I predicted. In fourth place, just above their fellow Los Angeles team, I have the LA Clippers. This is a very strong team. Putting aside the ongoing Kawhi drama and strictly looking at basketball, this is a team that on paper should be capable of contention if they stay healthy. They have two elite stars, although they are aging, not to mention Zubac, who really broke out last year, and I do believe is a capable third option. Then you got the guys around them who are returning from last year. Derek Jones Jr., Chris Dunn, Bogdan Bogdanovic are all pieces I'd consider valuable to a contending team, although Bogdan is injured for an unclear amount of time, and losing Norman Powell from last year does sting a little bit. Let's talk about the new guys they added, though, because I think that's honestly a more interesting conversation. Brook Lopez, while not the player he once was on either end of the court, is still a good basketball player. You add Chris Paul. I don't know how much he's going to be playing, but I do like the addition, even just as a guy on the bench. John Collins is still relatively young, and I do think there's still some promise there. Maybe not as much as there once was, but I still think he's a capable contributor to this team. Then there's Bradley Beal, the harbinger of destruction in Phoenix, but I think the issue there may have been his role. In a reduced role where he's expected to do less, I think Beal could excel this year, but only time will tell. Building off of that, my player to watch for the Clippers is Bradley Beal. I want to see if those Phoenix years were just off years, or if those big years at the end of his Wizards tenure were the flukes. Is he going to be solid in a more reduced role for the Clippers, or really just how are they going to utilize him? I'm very curious to see that this year. I have the Nuggets in third, and these guys very much feel like contenders this year. Any team with Nikola Jokic is dangerous, but the Nuggets made some improvements over the offseason. Denver got rid of MPJ in exchange for Cam Johnson, which honestly I feel like is just a straight-up improvement. Last year you saw improvements from a guy like Christian Brown, but then Denver also picked up Bruce Brown back from their championship team in the offseason. Their starting five is elite, but now they've got a solid bench, both through trades and signings, as well as in-house growth with guys like Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson. Also, I like the addition of Jonas Valanciunas, who, after a little bit of confusion, is seemingly going to be playing for the Nuggets. This squad is really strong, and if any team is going to knock the Thunder out of the playoffs, I see it being them. As for the regular season, I think they have a slight improvement over last year, get that third seed. For my player to watch, I did pick Cam Johnson. I'm interested to see how he's going to help this team out. He probably won't score quite as much as he did with the Nets, where he was essentially a first option. Now he's on the Nuggets. He's probably more like a third option. How does he do in that role? In second place, I have the Houston Rockets. This team was good last year, and in all honesty, I think they just got better this year, which is definitely scary. They were dangerous last year with guys like Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Tari Eason all really breaking out. Jabari Smith Jr. was also good last year, and they had solid role players around them like Steven Adams and Fred VanVleet, the latter of whom is now out for an unclear period of time, which does create a problem in the point guard position, but I think they'll still be fine. Listen, I'll stop beating around the bush. They added KD, which almost immediately addressed my biggest issue with this team coming out of last year. That being that this team reminded me a lot of the 2021-2022 Memphis Grizzlies, and I felt some concern that they might screw things up in the same way that team did. Just sit around and make no meaningful additions or address any problems and expect things to work out. They didn't do that, though. Instead, they added KD, who I recognize doesn't have the best track record since he started jumping around from team to team every few years, but he's still an elite player. I also like the DFS addition to add to their perimeter defense. I'm also curious to see whether or not Reed Shepherd will get more main roster time this year, and that's actually going to transition into our player to watch. With Fred VanVleet injured, does Reed Shepherd get more playing time? Does he step into an increased role and maybe take that point guard of the future slot for the Rockets? I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by this. I have OKC in first in the West in the regular season this upcoming season. Obviously, this team is very good. They have a no-doubt top 3 player on their team, and there's pretty much no holes anywhere else. I'm really torn with this team just on a personal level because I really want to support SGA because we're from the same town. But there's also guys on this team who piss me off all the time, so I don't really know what to say. This team is just so good. We'll see how things work out with the money in a few years. I won't be surprised if they have to let some guys go, but for at least a little while, the rest of the league is going to have to deal with this team. They are going to be the team to beat. This team's just so good. I really don't know what else to add. They really didn't make any crazy additions over the offseason, which is fine because they didn't have to. Will they win 2 years in a row, or will we see a new champ this year? Only time will tell. My player to watch for this team is Nikola Topic. He was injured all last season. I don't know that he'll be playing a major role, but I'm curious to see what he'll do in the minutes he does play. And that is all for my Western Conference standing predictions. If you guys enjoyed, drop me a like. I'd appreciate it. If you guys disagree, leave me a comment. Do whatever you want. This is my first video, so any support or engagement helps, even if you're hating. It does help me. So I'll take anything. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.